we go. Took me a second try, but I got there. All right. Mute. Okay. Hi. No one's on yet, but I'm going to get started anyway, because for everyone who just watches the replay, here we go. Haha! I found a hack to get my intro title in. So, hi everyone. My name is Elizabeth Zimmerman, also known as Liz. This is the Just One End podcast. This is my second live episode. It's not something I plan to do regularly, but I didn't actually tell very many people about it last time. I was just kind of trying it out. So I decided to let people know ahead of time so that they could actually join this time. So I'll probably go back to the normal edited version after this, at least, on a fairly regular basis. I don't plan to be doing a live one every time. But, so let's see, the spiel. Today is, well, you should know if you're watching live, but if you're watching the replay, today is Saturday, June 2nd. It is, like I said, it's episode 23. You can find me on Instagram as Just One End Podcast. You can find me on Ravelry as Aljabrina. I'm all out of order. I am coming to you from Cochranville, Pennsylvania, which is the east coast of the U.S. And I think that's it. Hopefully that's everything. So anyway, welcome to the episode, the very special second live episode. I forgot to put in any show notes in the last episode, so I haven't done it yet. I will at some point. But it's so weird. For some reason, I've got some phobia against watching my own live rebroadcast, which is weird because when I edit the podcast, I watch the whole thing like 3 times through, between like going through and editing the first time and making sure that everything's right and putting in all the screenshots and everything. For some reason, I haven't brought myself to rewatch the the last episode. So I will do that, and I'll get the show notes added there, and then I'll also do that here and add show notes here. So hopefully I'll get it done in the next day or two. But it has only been a week since I did my last episode, which is unusual for me. Normally I'm every 2 to 3 weeker. But I have a ton of content this week, so I figured I could justify an early episode. Not a lot went on this week, which is why I have a lot of content. It was Memorial Day week. I think I've talked about it before. My family, we have a ton of birthdays because between the kids and my generation, the generation below us, and my parents, we've got at least one birthday every month. So we tend to pick one Sunday a month where we do a birthday dinner. And my brother-in-law, Rob, and I have birthdays 2 days apart in May. So we did our birthday dinner on Memorial Day, and we did a, kind of a picnic. Not really. We were at their house, and we did the May monthly dinner. Which was amazing because Rob, he has a Big Green Egg grill, and he really likes to, he learned about it a lot and really got into it. He made the most amazing brisket. It was so good. So we had really good brisket. And then we also played a lawn game called Cube. I don't know if a lot of people have heard of it. I played it with friends in college. I think that's the first time I heard of it. It's KUBB. So it's a lawn game. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. You can look it up. But we played that a bunch, which was a lot of fun because, my parents were playing and I was playing and my siblings were playing and our nieces and nephews and kids were playing. So we just had a really fun time on Monday. And then that was pretty much all I did this week. I worked and I crafted, and that's pretty much it. So jumping right into the knitting content then, because that's all I have to talk about today. I have a finished object. So I was working on these last time. I had ripped out the Jelly Roll socks that I had started with. Um, and I decided to restart and do Rose City Rollers instead because I've just decided those are my favorite sock pattern. I like shorty socks. I like that they're simple. Hi. And I like how quick they are. So as evidence of that, I have a finished pair of socks, which was, I think, half a sock last week. So I finished these in like 3 days, I think, maybe 4. But so these are done. They are Yakagani yarns. I don't know the colorway, unfortunately. I don't know if I either lost the band or I don't know. I'm not sure what the colorway is. But it was one of their sock sets. I picked it up at Vogue Knitting Live earlier this year. So it's got a green and brown variegated yarn in the body and then a matching brown, well, a coordinating brown on the heels and toes. So something about these socks. I have normally knit, I started knitting socks on a size 2, I think. And that worked out pretty well for me for a while. And then they started feeling loose because apparently my gauge loosened. And now they've loosened again because I knit these on a size 1 like I normally was, but they're too loose. So I have decided that 64 stitches on a size 1 is too much for me now. And I'm going to start knitting my socks 60 stitches on a size 1. I have also purchased a size 0 needle in case I want to go down again, which I could see happening because it seems that my gauge is just getting looser and looser. But for now, when I knit socks again, I'm going to stick with size 1, 60 inches or 60 stitches, not inches. But this sock, so normally if you've seen socks that I knit before, I like to put in an asymmetric toe because my foot is shaped like this, essentially. Like this is my big toe and then my toes slope down. So an asymmetric toe fits me well. I decided to give a square toe a try though, just to try it out. Because the problem with asymmetric toe is that you've got a left sock and a right sock. So you kind of, you have wear spots more easily because you're wearing them on the same foot every time. So they would, you've got your pressure in the same spots. Anyway, so so I thought I'd try an interchangeable, basically I could do either sock, either foot, and do a square toe. Oh, I was going to remove my nail polish. This is still chipping from 2 weeks ago. Anyway, so the square toe, I went down to, I think, 10 stitches on each side. And it works pretty well because basically what it does is when I put it on, it kind of sits like this. So my big toe just ends up in here and it's just kind of looser there and stretches there and it fits fine. It doesn't feel weird. But I did go too long. I didn't start the toe. I started the toe too late. I think I could have taken out about 10 rows. And then it would fit better. So, I mean, it fits. It's kind of loose and slides around a bit. So, lessons learned because I haven't knit socks in a while. Especially the shorty sock. I had done, I think the last ones I did were my Christmas socks, which were just a tube with an afterthought heel. So, I'm getting some Sock Mojo back. I do have socks in my whips to show you, but yeah, so I'm learning more about the recipe that I like using. I do really like, though, just sticking with the Rose City Rollers. I think I'm not really going to attempt any other sock unless it really calls to me. I'm not a sock knitter. Like it's not my go-to project, so I don't like feel the need to branch out, especially because I'm not a sock wearer. I rarely actually wear socks. They're bugging me. I'm gonna throw them on the floor. I am normally either barefoot or in flip-flops or sandals, and those are not sock conducive. So I just don't wear as many socks, so I just don't feel the need to branch out and explore other patterns. There are some beautiful socks out there, but I'll let other people knit and wear those. I'll just stick with my simple, shorty, quick socks. So that's my finished object. I do have a ton of whips also. So let me start with this one. And Kirsty, you'll be happy to see this. Well, mostly. This is my crocheted Nike Air Jordan, I think is the style it's supposed to be, slipper that my nephew requested a year ago. I started it. I started it like, I don't know, 3 or 4 podcast episodes ago. And then I just stopped working on it. I had done up to like this point here. So it was basically a base and a toe. And that was it. So I picked it up. Kirsty did a very good job of encouraging me, aka guilting me into making sure I did it because he asked for them a year ago. So I have one that is almost completely done. I still need to do the Nike swoosh, and then there's like a little bit of black trim at the top, and then I need to put on laces. That's all done in black yarn, and I haven't gone hunting for my black yarn yet. So that's why it's not completely done. So I do have the second one to still do, but I think that because I've gotten this far, I feel more confident about it. That was half of the problem, is that I'm not a confident crocheter. Also, the pattern is terrible. It's a paid for pattern. It's on Etsy. And my nephew, he found the picture and was like, hey, is this something you could make? And I basically reverse image searched it and found the Etsy shop, and that's how I got the pattern. But it's awful. She puts in the bottom like a note that says, I know this is a complete pattern because I've knit from it many times, and yeah, right? It is complicated. And so I know that I'm fairly certain that she's probably heard from people that it's hard to understand. I'm assuming she, honestly, I don't know. I don't know who the designer is, but yeah, I will never be knitting or crocheting from patterns from this person again, because it's just terribly hard to understand. But it's like, it's all little pieces that you've got to do certain shapes and then seam it together. So it's fairly complex. But I have one done. I'll do the other one and then I'll be done with it. And it won't be bugging me like it has been for the last year. So I do have a question though. So I used a flip-flop to create the base for the shoe so that he could wear it outside, because that's what he wanted. He didn't want an actual slipper. He wanted to be able to wear it outside. So what I did though is I had to cut off the straps in order to just make it a base. So the little nubbin pieces that hold the straps on, those I basically cut the straps and then I have those separately. But I'm trying to figure out if I want to like put those back in and glue them so that it's a solid base so that, water can't get in, things like that. Or if I want to put something else in, because really those things, like when you squish on them, they'll poke you probably if you squished on them in the wrong spot. So I don't know. I haven't figured out what I want to do about the holes. So if you have any suggestions, let me know, so that he can have a non-holy sole for his shoes. So that is that one. Hopefully I will have a finished pair in the next couple of weeks. I'm doubting before the next podcast, but we'll see. Let's see, what else do I have? Let me share some stitching. Like I said, I have a ton to share. I feel like I did a little bit on a lot of things, although it really feels like a lot on some of the things too. So let's see. So this is the Legendary Creatures, just getting my Q-snaps off. Legendary Creatures Stitch Along from Clouds Factory. So last time I showed it, I think I had half the hippogriff done. So the hippogriff is done now. And then this character here, which is called a Gamayan, I don't know how to say that. That one is done. So that completes March. Those two characters were the March pattern. So I am into the April pattern now, which is this guy here. I can't remember what he is. He starts with F though, whatever he is. I'll try and remember to put that in the notes. But he looks like a little Viking guy, and he's got a snake that's going around him, and I've done everything except the head. I think maybe dragon, maybe sea serpent, something like that. So I've got everything. I've just got to do the head and the letter F and then the name of what it is to do. So that will be half of April done. And I like these. I think that they are going a bit faster than the monthly patterns for the Fabulous Women in History because I think they're a little bit simpler. They don't have quite as much background. A lot of the Fabulous Women in History ones had a lot of like accessories and backgrounds and things to put the people into context. With the characters, I think that a lot of them are so self-descriptive that you don't have quite as much of that. So I think these are simpler panels, simpler patterns each time. So I'm getting through it a bit faster, I think. So I am optimistic that I may actually catch up on the stitch along before the end of the year. We'll see. I'll have to keep my stitching mojo in order to really be able to claim that. But for now, like I said, I'm making really good progress. That was all within the past week. I've done basically a full panel because I had half of one character done from the 1 month, and I finished that, did a whole nother one, and now I'm halfway through the first character of the next month. So I think that I should be able to catch up if I keep going on it at the rate that I am. So we'll see. Okay, I'm also working on a pair of socks. This is a new cast on. I was feeling a bit of cast on-itis this week. So I have a couple of new projects. So this is a pair of socks. I am right now working on the heel flap. I'm doing them 2 at a time. This is where I've gone down to 60 stitches. So I'm using a size 1, 60 stitches. And again, I'm doing the Rose City rollers. So I've done the cuff on each one. I'm doing them 2 at a time this time. So I've got about 1 inch on the cuff, and then I'm working on the heel flap. I decided to do an Eye of Partridge heel instead of just the normal slip stitch heel this time. Not particularly for any reason, but just to change it up. If you're not familiar, an Eye of Partridge heel is basically the same as a slip stitch heel, except you slip you alternate which stitch you're slipping. So instead of slipping the same every other one on your right side row, you switch which one you slip. Hopefully that made sense. So that's what I'm doing. I'm about halfway through the heel flap. And that's what I was working on this morning as I just started the heel flaps on them. So it's just a bit of a start. It's not a ton of progress, but with how quickly the last socks went, I was in the mood to knit socks again. So what I'm working on it from, though, this is my Gales Art sock blank that I picked up at Maryland Sheep and Wool. This is a double sock blank, which I've never worked with before. I've only done a single sock blank before. So that obviously lends itself, that's tilde hair, that lends itself to 2 at a time, wrong side. It lends itself to 2 at a time knitting because when you unravel it, you've got 2 strands, which, there you go. And they're not going to match completely because it's a sock blank and, there's just going to be some changes to the, to how the dye shows up on each one, but they're going to be pretty darn close. So you can see, hopefully you can see, you can see it changes from green to white to the orange together on that. So I should get pretty matchy socks. Not that I care. I really don't care. Of course there's a theme of green. Yes, there is orange in this one though, because it's the pumpkins on it. But yeah, always green. And I am just getting to my first pumpkin. So the cuff was very green, and the heel is going to have some green or some orange in it, and I'll have a lot more orange coming up. So, okay, so that is my sock project. I have one more whip. Yes, one more whip. Okay. This was also a new cast on. This was just because I was dying to cast something on for some reason. I didn't want to work on anything that I had. And I was like, I want to cast something new on. So I did. And it's a shawl. And I have said repeatedly that I hate half pie shawls or shawls where you start with a few inches or a few stitches and you just grow and grow and grow and you got huge long rows. Yeah, I know that about myself and I cast this on anyway. So this is Knitflix and Chill. It is by Annie Lupton, Boho Chic Fiber Company. I bought this as a kit. When Jamie was selling yarn under Beautiful Mess Yarn Works, she had a kit that she was selling with this pattern and a little TV stitch marker and 2 colors of yarn. So the yarn that I picked up, I don't know what the colors are, but like I said, she doesn't dye yarn anyway, so you couldn't get it. But it's a mostly white with pink and blue and purple and yellow. Like there's some little surprising colors in here. So that's the main color of the yarn. And then the contrast, which is just at the edge of the shawl, the contrast is really just here. And the example is not a hugely contrasted yarn, but my contrast is this blue, which matches really well with some of the blue speckles in here. So that is the yarn that I'm using. And this is the progress that I've made. Oh my goodness, I tied my needles too tight. So I've made a pretty good amount of progress already. And then this is my Sucre Miniatures Coffee to Go cup stitch marker. It's just marking the right side right now. I'll move it up after this so that I can actually use it as a progress keeper to figure out, how much progress I've made since last time I showed it. But I really like the texture pattern. It's kind of like a rib, but it's broken up a little bit. Like there's a little bit of garter in these sections here. So it's really pretty. I like it. It's got this nice little eyelet. Trying to show this eyelet section. Sorry, my needles are clacking. Eyelet section along the edge too. And this pattern, it has a stitch count included in it. So the section I'm on, I'm increasing to 307 stitches before I move to the next section, which increases to 547 stitches. And then the last section, which is the ribbed edging, increases to 651 stitches. And guess what? It ends with an I-cord bind off. So it's going to be a lot of stitches in the end. Since an I-cord bind off, you knit 3 stitches for every one you bind off. So it's basically 1,800 stitches to bind it off. So... But I do want to see, it does, right? It looks so squishy and comfy, and I love that it has tassels too. And I just got that loom tool. So I'm excited to use that to make the tassels. So I am excited about it. Yes, basically I'm crazy. Yes, exactly, Victoria. I know that I don't like this style, but it's just so easy. Like it's easy knitting. That's the thing. Like it's a four row repeat. It's really easy to do. And so it's a nice pick it up for a few minutes. And I don't feel guilty about, I can stop mid row. I'm okay with that because it's easy enough to read and figure out where I'm at. So yeah, basically I'm crazy. But I wanted to cast something on, and I've had this kit for a long time and it was sitting in a bag, already wound up and ready to start because I had originally planned on starting it while I was at the Flying Fibers retreat this year. So I didn't end up working on it then, but it was all ready to go and like calling to me. So yeah, I'm sure that I will complain at certain points, but I am really looking forward to the end result. So that is all of my knitting whips. I do have one more knitting whip coming up. Because I am participating planning to. I haven't actually cast on yet. So I'm planning to participate in the Summer Mitten Knit Along, which Rachel of Treehouse Knits and Denise of Earth Tones Gal, I think, are hosting. They're hosting Knit Along. So it started, I think, 2 days ago, and it goes through the end of July. So I think I showed this last time, but it's the Hot Tomato and Silver Linings yarn from Legacy Fiber Arts. That is totally blowing out. It's not that, I don't know, red. It's very red there. It's a bit more, it's not quite orange, but it's definitely a paler red than it shows up on there. But I'll try and take a picture. But it's very tonal. It's got a lot of depth to it. It's very pretty. So these two together are going to be my Flora mitts, which is by Ellie of Ski and Deer Knits. That is going to be what I cast on for the summer mitten knit along. And so I haven't started it yet, but I'm planning to, honestly, I'll probably do it today because the cast-on-itis has still got me in its grips. So, but there is something else that I've been working on that, honestly, I only worked on it for the last 2 days, but I made yarn. So I have a supported spindle that I took a class on at Knitter's Day Out last year, which, if I remember, I want to talk about Knitter's Day Out by the end. But I took a class on the supported spindle. I spun on it a little bit, and it was fine, but I wasn't really loving it. And then I saw Paige do some drop spindling during her Periscope. Her May Scope a Day this month. She did some drop spindling earlier in the month. And I was just like watching how she was doing it, and it seemed more along the lines of what I would want to do, because with a supported spindle, you're spinning it and then you have to support that spin in your hand. So it's basically spinning in your hand. So you really can only either do park and draft, which I kind of hate doing park and draft, or you have to do a one-handed draft. And I am just not that good at drafting the fibers. So I'm really more of I need 2 hands to get it to draft the way that I want. So I decided to give supported spindle a try. So I went to Flying Fibers earlier this week. They carry Brooklyn Tweed, and they were doing a release of, I think it's called Peary, the Peary yarn. It's their new fingering weight yarn. And so I decided to drop by and go see them because I haven't seen them in a really long time. I don't know why. Things have just been busy, so I haven't made it out recently. So I went out and saw them earlier this week. And while I was there, I was just shopping around a little bit, and I saw where they had the drop spindles. And I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about how I wanted to try that method of spinning. And supported spindles, or drop spindles, they're really not that expensive. This was like $12, I think. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to pick one up and then, actually try it out and actually do some spinning. So I did. Jerry gave me kind of a demo on it while I was there. She gave me a bit of fluff to try out with. So I was working on that. And then I came home and I was like, when I was doing the supported spindle too, I was, just playing around with whatever fluff I had. I had bought some merino and some, I think it was yak, for the supported spindle class, but they're both very slippery, and I've been told that's not good for a beginning spinner. So possibly why I was irritated with the spinning on the supported spindle. But I do own some BFL because I have this Sweet Georgia pack. It's a spinning Sweet Georgia 6-pack with hand-dyed superwash Blue Face Leicester wool, 1 ounce each of 6 different colors. And the colors are really gorgeous. So this is the one that I picked up to spin. It's like a dark blue and a light blue and some grayish white. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start with the good stuff, with the pretty stuff that I've been holding on to. I'm just going to go for it. So I did, and I made some yarn. It's not perfect. It's my first time. I honestly had no idea what I was doing for the most part. I mean, I was making yarn, like it held, so apparently that's good enough. And then I split it in half, and so it's 1 ounce. Sorry, my brain is all over the place. So it's 1 ounce little things of fluff. I split it in half so that I could spin one and then spin the other and then ply them together. So I spun the one the night that I got the spindle. It took me about 2 hours, I think, to spin the 1/2 ounce, which I don't know if that's good or not, but but you know, it was nice that I got through it in one night. It didn't take me like a huge long amount of time. And then the next day, I spent a little bit on lunch, and then after work, and then into the evening, I finished spinning the other ounce, or the other half an ounce. So then I had to figure out how I wanted to ply them. And I don't own anything really for spinning because I don't do it. But I had seen online DIY Lazy Kates, which is how you can put your spindles on and ply straight from the spindles. So what I did is when I finished spinning the first half ounce, I transferred it from the spindle to just a pencil. Like I just wrapped them onto each other. And then I did the same thing with the second half ounce. I transferred that onto a pencil. And then I got a cardboard box and I poked some holes in the side. Totally has my address on it. Poked some holes in the side. and then stuck the pencils through there. You can see this one's still in there. And then they spin pretty freely, so I can, you know, draw it out. This is what was left of the one because they weren't totally even. So that worked out pretty well. I do have a little flap here because I was putting this on the floor and it kept like lifting up. So that flap is to put my foot in to secure it to the floor to hold it down so that it could draw up. It works. It totally works well. So that's my DIY Lazy Kate. So I did that and then I plied it. And this is where I literally had no idea what I was doing. I had heard that you spin in the opposite direction to ply your yarn. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I just attached them and then just like spun it in the opposite direction until it felt like it wasn't like winding back on itself anymore, which sometimes I was better at than others. So I just did that until I had all of the yarn onto my spindle. Obviously, I was plying onto my spindle, so I had all of that on there. Then I put the spindle into my little Lazy Kate, which also still worked really well. Even though it's a hook on the end, the hook just spun pretty freely in that hole. And I used my DIY Niddy Noddy. Now this I have had for a while. I've made this out of PVC. I've had it because not because I spun, but because for some reason I had like a ball of yarn like this. Not quite like the tube style, not like this, but kind of like when they're like half this size and they're just kind of in a ball like that. And I wanted to knit what I was working on from a cake instead of that ball. And for some reason, it didn't occur to me in the slightest that I could just wind from the ball directly into a cake. For some reason, I was thinking it had to be in a hank form in between. And I was like, oh, I can just make a Niddy Noddy and put it into a hank and then spin that. So that's why I have a Niddy Noddy, because I'm dumb and it didn't occur to me to skip the middle step. But hey, it comes in handy now that I've decided that I wanted to spin. So it's just out of PVC pieces. It's got 2 T-junctions. It's got these little end cappy things, and then it's just little pieces of PVC pipe. So it can twist and it can come apart, and yeah, it's all super easy. So you can find instructions on making these online really easily. I didn't make it like a specific length, so I can't really use it to like measure my yarn. I think that when I measured it, I took like a tape measure around it just to see what it was, and I think it's about 60 inches. I think most people usually have like 2 yards or something. I don't know how Niddy Noddies work, but so I think that I got about 35 yards after I applied it. It's not going to be enough for much of anything, but I do think that I'm going to put it into my Cozy Memories blanket. It's a little bit, I mean, the gauge is all over the place. I mean, I don't think you could even say what the thickness. I don't even know what I would call it, but I'm going to try and just put it into my Cozy Memories blanket. So, so that's what my first hand spun will turn into. But I did really enjoy the process, so I am planning to do more. I have more of these little packs to work on. I think I will try and do a little bit more research, so I'm a little more confident that I know what I'm doing. But but for my first time, I mean, it wasn't bad. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the process. I really liked doing the spin, like the whole, I don't know. It was all just fun to do. So that is my last project that I wanted to share. Let me check my notes real quick, make sure there was nothing else that I needed to talk about. And of course there is. Oh, that Sweet Georgia sampler pack. I picked that up at Woolworks in Baltimore last year when I did my little personal yarn crawl when we did the Orioles game. Okay, one more thing I want to talk about, then I'll show you a little bit of acquisition. It's not really that yarn related, but I'll talk about it anyway. So the 3-color knit along is still going on. This is my completed project for the 3-color knit along. Right now it's just sitting on the back of my chair. But this was the Goldfish Memory shawl from Casapinka. Lolo did it yarn. You can find all the information on it on my project page, which I will remember to put in the notes later. So the 3-color knit along is still going on. It ends on June 15th, so you still have about 2 weeks. So if you're quick and you want to start now, then you can, and you can still join in. Paige the Framer and I are hosting it together. We are doing one more virtual check-in. So tomorrow, which is Sunday, June 3rd, at 2:30 Eastern time, which is basically 45 minutes from now tomorrow, we are going to do another Zoom. So we'll do a Zoom meeting. So you can hop on, show us your progress. If you finish, show us your finished project. If you are starting something, then that'd be great too. And then, even if you're not participating or anything and you just want to come hang out, then you can do that too. So I will be putting the Zoom meeting ID into the Ravelry thread in my group. We don't get the ID until like half an hour before we actually meet, so that's when it will be in there. I'll try and make it noticeable. I kind of buried it last time, so I'll put it into the comments and make it noticeable. I've got fluff in my nose now. So that's tomorrow. So Zoom meetup kind of thing, last check-in before the end of the knit along. The prize for the knit along is a frame that Paige gave me to use as the prize. It's a fabric wrapped mat using Mrs. Brown's Bags fabric in a lovely white frame. So it's an 8x10 frame with a 4x6 opening, I believe. So that's the prize. I think I have it posted on Instagram if you want to check it out there. Oh my gosh, my nose. Oh, there's definitely fluff flying around. So that's the grand prize. So we'll be drawing a winner for that from my Ravelry group. There's an FO thread and a yarn thread. It's an FO and yarn thread because the other way to enter to win is either finish your project or have all of your yarn or some of your yarn purchased through Paige. So if you got any of your yarn through Paige's shop, then that's another entry. So I think that's it for the 3-color cowl information. If you have any questions though, let me know. There's the Ravelry thread with a chatter thread, or you can just reach out to me or Paige on Instagram. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with some acquisitions. First of all, you saw the drop spindle. I picked that up while I was at Flying Fibers earlier this week. I also picked up some West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn from them. I don't know if they just started carrying it or if I just didn't know that they carried it. But I really like this yarn. Honestly, I haven't knit with it yet. But I have this that is just dying to be knit. This is the Mojito colorway. That's also West Yorkshire Spinners. But I really like the feel of it. It's like a BFL blend, I think. So it's 75% wool, 25% nylon, and 35% of that is Blueface Leicester. So it's got a little bit of a more grabby feel like BFL does. But I really like them. So there's this one, which is, I think, in their cocktail line, just like the Mojito one is. And there's probably a name on it that I'm missing somewhere, or it may be covered up with a sticker. So whatever colorway this is, and then whatever colorway this is. And this one's got some really bright blue and green in it. So those will be a lot of fun. Since I am feeling, sock mojo-ish, then I thought I'd pick up some more sock yarn, because I don't have enough, obviously. So but then the last thing I want to talk about acquisition-wise is actually not really knitting related. So a while back, a coworker recommended a book to me. And she was like, it's about knitting, but it's like romance, but it's, I don't know, it's just a fun book. And I was like, okay, I'll read that. So it turned out to be a book by Penny Reid, which I'd never heard of. But then as soon as I read it and started talking about it to other people, they're like, oh, of course, Penny Reid. Yeah, she wrote the Knitting in the City books. I was like, oh, okay, so this is a thing. So I read all of them. And by read, I mean listen to, because I prefer audiobooks. So I listened to all of them, because then I can knit, because I'm not good at reading and knitting. I audiobook and knit. And then I listened to the spin-off series, which is the Winston Brothers series. Now, the same narrator does all of the books in the Winston Brothers series. And I really liked him as a narrator, except one of the books. And I'm trying to remember which one it is here. This one. So, Beard in Mind. This one is book 4. I could not stand the voice that the male narrator did for the female character. I found it really irritating. So I decided to get the book itself so that I could just read it instead. And then I like to collect, I like to have a whole collection. So because there are 4 books in the series so far, and book 5 is coming out in 2 months, I decided to get the whole set. So I have the books 1 through 4 of the Winston Brothers series by Penny Reid. They're romance novels, but they're substantial. That's a big book. And I really like the storylines. I think that they're very well written. I really like the characters. So I decided to get those in book form so that whenever my Audible membership runs out, or I let it lapse, then I'll still have access to those books that I really, really liked. So, and then I also picked up this book, which is book 7 of the Knitting in the Series book, Knitting in the City series, which is the best book in the series. The rest of them I probably won't get, just because I don't think that I would read them again. But this one was really, really good. The audiobook was also really good. The narrators were fantastic. The character Dan is from Boston, and he's got this great Boston accent, and the narrators did a great job with that. So it's just really enjoyable. So I decided I'll get them in book form, since the audiobooks are tied to a membership that may not last forever. so now I have those. And that's really it. I haven't really been purchasing a lot of yarn lately. I've been knitting from stash when I can. But yeah, that's all I've got right now. So, thank you for joining. And I will, like I said, I'll probably go back to the traditional episode, when I do my next one. But it was fun to do, to be able to come on live. Thank you to everyone who joined and commented and said hi. And I hope that I will see you in my next episode, even though it won't be live. So.